The parable of the duping. Old Christ had been visiting neighborhoods all over the globe. Don't ask me how exactly. A trait of God has always been omnipresence, being everywhere at once, and he had been accepted, protected, and assisted by people who lived in the main south area in the form of Michael in the flesh. For you see, those who are inclined to put spirit over corrupt culture have always been good candidates to do God's work, the lowly being satisfied with good spiritual favors. So the Christ had been continuing the uncountable works of his Father, giving sight to the blind, healing the sick, forgiving the drenched and wretched. 'Cause I can't and won't, damn it, said those who wouldn't quit causing trouble in his temple. The vendors who had somewhat big names these days were always beside the point. Anyhow, there was another Eugene Void Withers, who had been having trouble adjusting to life after many changes he had to spare the author as he had grown from them now. But in this transformation, his first steps as man, Eugene Void Withers had no idea what to do with money, so he seemed to throw it at the poor. One day, he gave $1 to Mike. One day, he gave spare change to an earthy one named Dave. Day by day, Eugene would sometimes see Jesus walking around, demonstrating new positions by grace alone. Eugene VW was ever grateful for having his life saved. In his little words were enough to stretch a lifetime, no doubt. So, as he stared at the worn face of Christ, he would regularly receive one concern: spare some change? He gave 4 coins, then $5, then $20, then $10, then $2. Michael had so little, was so blissful, and yet he would ask at the end of their daily encounters, spare some change? Eugene had obsessed with salvation so much a homeless man had to tell him to get out of the street once he was trying to hand over more quarters. He was like a mega churchgoer. The neighbors around may not have even cared to be watching, but Eugene wondered if the thugs thought he was a sucker. Were they even thugs? Eugene went inside, and he wondered if he were a fool. My, what the Enlightenment philosophers would have thought of his logic. My, what the hood flippers would have thought of Eugene being hoodwinked. He asked himself why he was worried. It was not a question of the amount. He just didn't like to think that he had followed faith only to be fooled. No, this would be a terrible feeling. So, he sat there. He did not spiral into a tizzy about the senselessness of everything and one's inability to figure out life. He realized he had a bright, beautiful future. He had met the Christ. Of course, donating money to God and the people of God was the least that Eugene could do. For God gave him life, and he was a fool if he thought that was worth less than bucks. But old Mike was hungry, thirsty, and he was always busy. He did need a few bucks here and there, of course. He had asked for big bucks only once. Not to mention, at this time period, how easily he was able to teach the word in vitro. He had gotten so good at it. "Where are you coming from, Eugene?" would ask a man who knew more than any professional. The Christ always had different things on his fingers, tattoos some days, watches others, clean skin others. Eugene told the son what he had been doing. He could not help but worry about money, as he was afraid that he was being duped. He was afraid all the people around him would think him a sucker, some crazy Catholic. But what he realized, by thought and then reason, was that it was always him, Eugene Void Withers, who, seeing the man who could give him anything, was always worrying about the dough. Mike merely brought this to the light.